News Talk 1240.
Some breaking news now coming out of Pennsylvania, where there's a hostage situation going on. Firefighters have been reported to have taken hostage in a Pennsylvania firehouse. So there's a hostage situation today in suburban Philadelphia after an armed man reportedly entered a local firehouse local to Pennsylvania. Local media over there reported that the ordeal began unfolding at 10:40 a.m. their time in the basement of the Lamont Fire Company in southeastern Pennsylvania. The firehouse is in the Cheltenham Township in Montgomery County, roughly 13 miles north of Philadelphia. According to local news sources, an unarmed source said that, or rather unnamed source, said that 3 hostages were being held by an ex-firefighter as of 1:30 a.m., and that is Eastern time, according to a news affiliate over there who said that the local law enforcement officials confirmed that an armed subject was inside the fire station. A person was seen leaving the building at around 11:30, but was not immediately clear how they were involved in the incident. A second person was detained about 15 minutes later outside the firehouse at gunpoint, and local media reported soon after that law enforcement had taken a suspect into custody. The Lamont Fire Company is one of 5 stations in Cheltenham and close to at least 2 schools, a major shopping mall, and several churches and apartment complexes, according to news sources in Pennsylvania. Also, there are reports that just before 12, police confirmed no injuries or fatalities at the scene. So there was a form of a hostage situation in Pennsylvania, which has now cleared itself up, if these reports are to be believed. So we'll keep you updated on that, of course, right here on Hot News Talk Radio. If the hostage situation has ended or if it's expanding farther, we'll let you know here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240, AM 1190, and AM 910. So there's a new product that Tesla may be pushing out, but we don't know what it is. That's kind of the problem. You see, Elon Musk is the CEO of Tesla, and he's very, very wily. He's a very wily sort of person. He likes to put out information that is tantalizing. We'll put it that way. He puts out information that we want to know more about, but he's very, let's say he leaves things open to speculation. And that's exactly what he's doing here with his teasing of this new product that he's wanting to put out. So Tesla CEO is teasing a major new product that is not a car amid the Solar City expansion, according to Extreme Tech. So Elon Musk, of course, is the CEO of Tesla. He's also involved in SpaceX, which is the private industry which is trying to get into space. Elon Musk announced today that Tesla will unveil a major new product at its Hawthorne Design Studio on April the 30th. And whatever that is, it will not be a new car. So it's a bit odd to be explicitly holding the announcement of a non-car product at Tesla Designs HQ for the Model S, but there's precedent. The supercharger announcement was held at the Hawthorne studio as well. So then again, Musk is calling this a major new product line. The direct quote is, "Major new Tesla product line, not a car, will be unveiled at the Hawthorne Design Studio Thursday at 8 p.m. on April the 30th. So we don't know if it's going to augment or extend the capabilities of already existing cars or what. The current crowd favorite for what Tesla will announce at this event is a home battery project, which would seek to have people have renewable energy somewhat affordable within their house. And there's also the capabilities and features that such a plan might offer in recent years now. And there's a sort of a weird project going on in what you might call the skunk works of Tesla, where they're working on solar technology and battery technology at the same time, where they're trying to get batteries that are super efficient. See, the Model S has an 85 kilowatt hour battery, and it's actually a nice fit for a house system too, according to Extreme Tech. The average U.S. house uses 32 kilowatt hours of power per day, according to energy, or rather data from 2010 gathered by the World Energy Council. So obviously that changes depending on the time of year, especially in summer where you're using a lot of energy to cool down your house. But the Model S's 85 kilowatt hour pack can provide energy for up to 2.5 days if completely drained. Tesla has previously said that it might recycle used batteries into home storage, so it's not hard to imagine the company offering a cheap 1 to 2 day system using older, smaller batteries, and then a multi-day capability with brand new or little used lithium-ion cells. So the Tesla Motor Company is very much into solar power and renewable energy and all those sorts of things. So it would not be surprising to find out that they're announcing some form of new home power system from the folks over at Tesla. So we'll just have to wait and see. Very weird developments, though, coming out of Tesla. So also in Charlotte, in North Carolina, the cops over there are, well, they're hesitant, we might say, to reveal whether or not Stingray devices have been used in different cases regarding some, well, stings, drug stings, and whatever. So, okay, we know about Stingray, right? We all know about what Stingray is, but here's a recap. A Stingray device is a device which is a cell site simulator, and it, well, what's the proper wording? It spies on your cell phone. That's the best way to put it. It's this device which spies on your cell phone. It gathers locational information, and it gathers information about what information is being pumped out of your phone. The data is being pumped out of your phone, I should say. So stuff like let's say you have 4G LTE data. It sweeps up that. You have, I'm losing my words here. You have voice calls, and you have SMS texting, okay? So those are all things that your phone does, and that's all information that your phone pumps out. But that's all information that the cell site simulators pick up. Well, these devices are employed by the police in various jurisdictions, and they're used to track down criminals, right? These devices are used to track down who they call criminals. But it's not just that. It's not just people who they have a warrant out on. It's also used to just track down people, regular old people. And oftentimes they don't bother to get a warrant. In fact, in some jurisdictions, it's been ruled that they don't even need a warrant. That's where things start to get rather complicated and rather, well, illegal, actually. Well, the Charlotte DA is reviewing that in 40 cases, cops didn't even know if they used stingrays, according to Ars Technica. So last fall, a judge in Charlotte, North Carolina, unsealed a multi-case set of 529 court documents that detail the use of Stingray, or cell site simulator, by local police. After that, the Mecklenburg County District Attorney's Office set out to review the applications and determine which records needed to be shared with defense attorneys. So the DA's office released a statement on Friday saying its review is complete, and the county's top prosecutorial authority found that only 2 cases involve the use of stingrays for investigative purposes, meaning that defense attorneys should be notified. So Stingray being used for investigative purposes with a warrant is arguably okay because it's not being used without a warrant, obviously, and it's not being used to sweep up broad amounts of information. Or is it? You see, a cell site simulator doesn't really discriminate. Now, you can put in a number which you want to be looked up by this cell site simulator, or an IMEI number, or whatever, and the cell site simulator will sweep up that information. Well, the problem is it's not just that it's picking up. Now, yeah, it picks up that number, but it picks up a lot of other numbers too. Thousands, potentially, of cell phones are being swept up by this cell site simulator device. So the report is not as simple as it might seem. The DA review excluded cases that were dismissed, which resulted in a non-guilty verdict, or were federally charged. In total, only 149 cases were examined. The local Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department, or CMPD, confirmed that stingrays would be used in more than 20% of these 39 cases. But in 38 of those 39 instances, the device was used to locate a defendant who had already had a warrant for his arrest, and in only one was it used for investigative purposes. As for the other 110 cases examined, the DA determined that stingrays weren't used in 70 instances, and that means that in 40 cases, the police were unable to confirm or deny stingray use. Why is that? Well, in some cases, actually, the police will drop a case rather than reveal that a stingray has been used. So the police are very, very cautious about the usage of their stingrays, or rather letting it slip that these stingray devices were used. So the DA came out with a statement saying, although prosecutors were not able to obtain information as to whether cell site simulators were definitely used in 40 cases, prosecutors examined the language in the motions to determine whether CMPD sought the orders for investigative purposes or for merely locating a defendant who had already been charged with apparently, or rather with a crime. Of those 40 cases, the order was apparently sought for investigative purposes. So only one had those stingrays being used for investigative purposes. It remains unclear whether this data was collected by cell site simulator or another investigative technique. The DA's office then reviewed the files of the two cases, one that CMPD confirmed the use of a cell site simulator, and one that CMPD could not determine whether the device was used, in which court orders were sought for investigative purposes. So we've run into this problem now where the police are actively trying to keep us from knowing whether these cell site simulators are being used. That raises quite a few problems for those of us who want to know whether or not they've been used in our local area. Say, I want the Chattanooga Police Department, the CPD, to reveal whether or not they're using a cell site simulator for purposes of investigations on citizens within Hamilton County. And I may not get that information because they'll give me some redacted form, or the FBI will tell me that I can't get that information, or what have you. So it's very hard to determine whether or not it's being used in Tennessee, or rather whether or not it's being used in Chattanooga, which is far more important, or Dunlap or South Pittsburgh, which is far more important than whether or not it's being used in the state broadly. See, cell site simulators are being used in Georgia, actually, at the Georgia Tech campus. The Georgia Tech campus police department does, in fact, use cell site simulators for unknown purposes. And so I'm drafting a Freedom of Information Act request to give to those guys too. Speaking of Freedom of Information Act requests, I have one that's currently pending with the Department of Homeland Security, specifically the border side of the Department of Homeland Security, on whether or not there's any information pertaining to my crossing of the border in December of last year. So if there is, then that's pertinent to me because I want to know what information they have, whether or not I've been flagged as potential domestic terrorist or whatever. So I want that information, and I'm hopefully going to get that information pretty soon. So the district attorney for Mecklenburg County office covers Charlotte, and this review was the first time the DA office actually saw CMPD Stingray applications. So Stingrays can determine a specific phone's location, but they also have the ability to intercept calls and text messages. And during the act of locating a phone, Stingrays can sweep up information about nearby phones as well. Earlier this month, there were reports from Ars Technica on how the FBI is actively trying to prevent disclosure of Stingray use in local jurisdictions across America. So the feds really do not want you to know that these devices are being used. Now, what's the reason for their secrecy? Shouldn't we be rather aware of what's going on regarding cell site simulators? Shouldn't we be aware of what's being used? Excuse me, by the police? I had to sneeze. Shouldn't we be aware of what's being used by the police? They don't seem to think so. So the police in much of these cases don't think you have a right to know what's being used against you and what evidence could potentially be used against you in a court. So they don't think you have a right to know that. I would disagree rather wholeheartedly, but I'm not a cop, so that doesn't really matter, right? So relatively little remains known about stingrays and how they're being used by law enforcement agencies nationwide, although documents have surfaced. The public has learned how these devices have been purchased and used in some limited instances. They're usually bought from the Harris Corporation. In 2013, there were reports from Ars Technica on leaked documents showing the existence of a body-worn Stingray. Then back in 2010, Christian Paget famously demonstrated a homemade device which is built for under $2,000. 2 U.S. senators revealed the FBI's position that the agency could use stingrays in public places without a warrant, and other authorities have kept quiet on the subject. Cops have continually lied to courts about the use of such technology, and the largest manufacturer of these devices, the Harris Corporation, has been tight-lipped about its hardware capabilities. So we don't know specifically how it works, how well it works, what the area of use can be. And there's a lot of things we just do not know about these Stingray devices, and there's a lot of things we probably won't know for a very long time about these Stingray devices, which causes quite a few problems for us as people who might be investigated by these cell site simulators, because it could be anybody. That's the problem. It's not just you or I who might possibly fall under the broad bubble of usage of these cell site simulators. It's everybody potentially. It could be anybody who's being spied upon by these cell site simulators, especially if they're being used by the feds outside the knowledge of the states. That causes quite a few problems. Well, you might remember the whole debacle with the Silk Road, how it fell down. Basically, it collapsed under its own weight with the help of the feds, who were sort of helping it along to fall. Think of it this way: the Silk Road is a dude who was standing on top of some stilts, right? He's standing on these stilts, and below are feds with baseball bats, and they're tapping at the stilts, trying to get him to fall over. That's basically what was happening with the Silk Road. It's a very precarious situation, and this is all happening on top of a speeding semi as well. So it's very, very precarious situation. Well, two of the feds who investigated the Silk Road are now accused of stealing from it as well. So Silk Road was an online drug marketplace. It's not the first, it's not the last. There are many, many online drug marketplaces. In fact, I have screenshots of quite a few on my hard drive, and it's super easy to buy drugs online. I mean, you've no idea how easy it is. It basically makes the whole war on drugs null and void, because it doesn't really matter how much they do if I can just buy drugs online with no problem, and it can be done quite easily. So really, the war on drugs doesn't particularly matter at this point. It's been made null and void by the simplicity of buying drugs online. So two feds have been accused of trying to steal from the Silk Road. So two federal agents who worked to whose work helped, there we go, to shut down the Silk Road online drug marketplace, have been accused of stealing from the darknet market during the investigation. The criminal complaint, which was unveiled today, reveals a remarkable level of corruption within the investigation into the drug marketplace, which hosted more than $200 million in transactions. The government prosecutors, who have charged former DEA agent Carl Force and former Secret Service agent Sean Bridges with wire fraud and money laundering, Force is also being charged with stealing government property and conflict of interest. So this comes as no big surprise, because the Secret Service has more often than not displayed their total ineptitude. The Secret Service is not very good at its job, so it's not really surprising that the people therein would also be highly corrupt. This is not surprising. Same goes for the FBI. Well, the government had multiple investigations into Silk Road, and agents Force and Bridges both worked on one based out of Baltimore. Force was the lead undercover agent in charge of communicating with Dread Pirate Roberts, who was the operator of the Silk Road site, while Bridges was a computer forensics expert. So in 2013, the 31-year-old Ross Albright was accused of being Dread Pirate Roberts, who ran the website, and he was tried and convicted on drug trafficking and money laundering charges last month. The same laptop that contained an amount of evidence against Albright also contained evidence that's now being used against those two former agents, including their chats with the Dread Pirate Roberts and a file labeled LE Counterintel, which also might be helpful in convicting Force and Bridges. So it comes as no surprise that people who are working within the Drug Enforcement Administration and different federal agencies would be rather corrupt. It comes really as no surprise, because the end-all be-all for most of these people is money. That's one of the main driving forces of most people in these United States is money. You know, everybody wants money. So if money can be had, money shall be had. And that's the case here with these federal agents, who were basically handed huge sums of money and then asked not to take it. That's sort of what happened. Now, that's not a statement that's meant to defend these agents. In fact, I have no interest in defending these agents. But it's, again, not particularly surprising that we would run into a case where these people have taken money and are very, very corrupt. It's not surprising at all. So the Force was a DEA agent. Agent Force was a DEA agent for 15 years, from 1999 until his own agency began investigating him in 2014. His annual salary was $150,000, but investigators saw his personal checking accounts received at least $750,000 during the time period of April 2013 to May 2014. His wife was a homemaker during this period, and there was no legitimate income to the household beyond Force's salary. So all the money he made was either from the DEA or from allegedly stealing from Dread Pirate Roberts. So some may argue that, well, Dread Pirate Roberts really needed to be stolen from. After all, he was selling drugs online. Well, that's a position which could be taken, and I can sympathize. However, I have no problem at all with selling drugs online. Personally, I really don't care. So it's still theft, even if you're stealing from an alleged criminal. So that's just the way it is. So is it really any surprise that the feds are totally corrupt and totally bad at their jobs? No, not at all. So what can be done about it? Well, we can point and laugh, really. That's what can be done about it. Pointing out their ineptitude is the ultimate offense to them, because they want you to think that they are just the most powerful and most omniscient and omnipotent people on the face of the earth, when in actuality, they're very bad at their jobs. They tend to have very low IQs, and they tend to also be very, very corrupt. So the best thing we can do is just point and laugh, really.
This is a mob mode. This is a mob mode. What kind of fool do you think I am? You think I know nothing of my...
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Hi, this is your computer speaking. I don't feel so well. It's like I've come down with a bug, and I'm getting slower.
Affordable Computers. We fix sick computers. Your hometown guys at Affordable Computers will repair your PC in half the time of the big boys at an affordable price. No tricks, no gimmicks, no computer speak technobabble. Just good, quick, and courteous affordable service and repairs. Want to affordably supercharge your PC? Affordable Computers on Highway 58. Affordable Computers hand builds all desktops in-house. If you're looking for a better-than-new refurb laptop, $150 will get you a Dell or another name brand at Affordable Computers. Affordable Computers, Highway 58, between Arby's and Taco Bell. Also Fort O, Battlefield Parkway, near Holcomb's. Affordable Computers, we service what we sell. Call 499-1975. That's 499-1975.
Wow, this is amazing. I'm feeling great. Supercharged.
We've got a table here at Delia's in Saudi Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection: loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas. Every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's in Saudi Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Saudi, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
NASCAR, Laura Ingram, Dennis Miller, David Toulis, Coast to Coast AM, and CBS Radio News. Chattanooga's news, talk, and sports leader.
Hot News Talk Radio, 910, 1190, and 1240 AM.
You love your hometown. Are you interested in free markets, in local economy? Do you hope that Chattanooga can survive the next meltdown, the next chain of disasters in the national economy? What's the best way to live out the ideals of self-government and self-determination? Join me, David Toulis, weekdays 1 to 3.
Hot News Talk 1240.
Love your neighbor, buy local.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Hot News Talk 1240. Hot News Talk 1240.
Radio, I'm Lillian Wu. The governor of Indiana continues to defend the state's new religious objections law, saying in a press conference,
I don't believe for a minute that it was the intention of the General Assembly to create a license to discriminate or a right to deny services to gays, lesbians, or anyone else in this state. And it certainly wasn't my intent.
Governor Mike Pence saying he wants clarification to that law on his desk this week. There have been governors, mayors, and businesses across the country that have criticized the law. A manhunt continues for a prisoner who escaped from a hospital in Virginia.
He was last seen in a hospital gown, armed with a gun at Inova Fairfax Hospital. Now police believe Wasan Asai is in a dark gray Hyundai Elantra with Virginia tags after abandoning a Toyota Camry.
Fox Radio's Rachel Sutherland. And oil prices continue to slide as investors await the outcome of the Iran nuclear talks. Fox News, we report, you decide.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Hot News Talk 1240.
It's not really particularly surprising that we have people who are in power who are very, very bad at doing what they're supposed to do. So this might actually be perhaps a show that targets the feds maybe too much, because probably, at least I can see my car from where I'm standing right now. That means that because I am where I am and I can see my car, it's unlikely that feds will try to snip the brake lines on my car so that I go careening into the building and then get charged with insurance fraud or whatever. So at least I have that going for me. Well, unfortunately, this is a world we live in where you have to be a little bit cautious, perhaps, of what you say when you're walking in public, because there are microphones everywhere. They're called gunshot monitor microphones. They're all over the place, and people welcome them, saying, "Oh, this is a great new innovation, which is going to keep people safe." You can do pretty much anything, actually, so long as it's in the name of national security or safety of some sort. So it's great, actually. This is a wonderful new development where basically anything can be pulled off in the name of safety and security. Well, anyway, the feds want Reddit to rat on its dark web forum members. So I'm not sure where this new terminology comes from, where they're constantly calling it dark web now instead of deep web. I guess because they want to have negative connotations. Well, anyway, the feds want Reddit to rat on its dark web forum members. Reddit, by the way, is sort of a link aggregate / web forum. It's I don't use it all that much, actually. I have an account on Reddit. I look at it occasionally. I think the last time I logged in was actually yesterday, so I could look at the $1 Million Extreme Reddit subreddit. But shouts to $1 Million Extreme, by the way, very good comedy group. Well, the feds want Reddit to rat on its dark web forum members. We may not have heard the last of the massive evolution Hold on, let me gather my tongue together here. It's gotten all tied up in a knot. Let me just untie it. There we go. So we may not have even heard the last of the massive evolution drug market. There we go. So there was a big old drug market online called Evolution, which lots of people used to buy drugs. The dark web, they keep calling it dark web, and I still don't know why. Anyway, the dark web marketplace abruptly disappeared along with users' bitcoins earlier this month. But there are new indications that law enforcement is looking into what happened. So Wired reported it on the Baltimore Department of Homeland Security, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and they've subpoenaed Reddit for information on 5 users of Reddit's r/darknet markets, all of whom discuss the fall of Evolution. Well, the subpoena, according to Wired, requests potentially identifying information such as IP addresses of the users. It also apparently asks for financial information, something far from necessary to create an account and post on Reddit. You see, the sign-up process for Reddit is actually quite easy. All you have to do is put an email address, username, and password, and you're in. So there's no financial information that goes in there. It's like signing up for a Gmail account. You don't need to have financial information to sign into Reddit, just as you don't need financial information to sign into any other web forum that I know of. So I'm not sure what they're going for here, other than just we want more information than we need because we're the feds and we can. So they're asking for financial information, which is far more than Reddit can even offer them. 4 of the users claim to have varying amounts of information on Evolution, while the 5th was a security researcher named Gwern Brownwin, who speculates he received a subpoena when another user promised to send him delicate information on Evolution administrators, which he claims never to have received. Brownwin revealed the subpoenas to Wired Magazine and subsequently wrote about them in a Reddit post. So it wouldn't be a surprise, according to The Verge, if law enforcement were interested in Evolution. The site, which sold weapons and credit card information as well as drugs, was a massive hub, which before its collapse rivaled even the better-known Silk Road 2. So these websites are pretty well known in the say more savvy, I guess, internet circles, where people are a little bit more aware of what goes on in the darker corners of the internet. Now, does this mean that I'm highly against the sale of weapons online or the sale of drugs online? I really don't care, actually, about the sale of weapons or drugs online. Now, stolen credit card information is a little bit different. I can understand there being a sort of a crackdown on that side of it. But really, there's no stopping it. See, that's kind of the beauty or the horror of it, depending on your side of things. On the one hand, it's quite cool, actually, to think that there's no way to stop this from happening. There's no way. You cannot stop the sale of these items online. It can't be done. And here's why. You see, these items are being sold online because people are willing to sell them online, and there's always going to be a market for it. If there's a market for something, it will be sold. That's all there is to it. So there is a market for the sale of drugs online. Thus, there will be people to sell drugs online, and that's all there is to it. There's a market for the sale of weapons online. Thus, people will sell weapons online. That's all there is to it. You can't stop it. Now, I see this as a positive thing because it's a furthering of the free market, and really, I don't care what people do in their own houses. I really don't. It doesn't matter to me. So this is a furthering of the free market with its extension online. I'm a free market proponent. I'm a free market advocate. In many regards, I am a very strong advocate for the free market. Strong not meaning that I go out there and I beat people up who don't like the free market. No, actually, I think it's cool that people don't like the free market, interestingly enough, because that means there's a diversity of thought. And diversity of thought is a wonderful way to maybe diversify your portfolio, you might say, in regards to how you think about things. Because there does need to be criticism of the free market. Absolutely, there needs to be criticism of the free market because it's not an omnipotent entity which does everything right. What it is, however, is a system which I believe to be the most efficient and the best way to go about things in the marketplace, buying and selling. A free market is the best market, in my view, and a local economy free market is the best economy free market, in my view. So it's there's just no way around it. From my perspective, there's just no way around it that this is the best way to do things, period, end of story. Where people might criticize that and say, no, there's, this is the best way. There's, communal anarchy and all sorts of different things. And that's cool too. But I don't see that as the best way to do things. However, that criticism can be applied to the free market where you see, okay, maybe they do have a point here and here, and I can apply that to how I'm running things. So constructive criticism is totally necessary to a properly running economy. Absolutely. So criticism is totally welcome. The problem here, though, is that there's a lot of things which are illegal by paper. These are things which are illegal because of a piece of paper that somebody wrote down in some office, which not everyone consented to follow. So you have this problem now where some guy in a suit and a bunch of people who are advocates for such things wrote down that, say, the usage of marijuana is illegal because we say so, and it's wrong because we say so. So now that being the case, we all have to follow that way of thinking, even though it's actually kind of a new way of thinking. So now we're stuck with this way of thinking that this particular item is illegal because some guy in a suit said so, and because of a group of lobbyists also said so. But that doesn't mean it's necessarily wrong to use or necessarily wrong to deal with. So that being the case, we have these new online marketplaces which are allowing for the sale of these items online. And this is the ultimate expression, you might say, of the free market. It's the ultimate expression because there's nothing that can be done about it. And even if you shut down one, zillions more will spring up. No problem. No problemo. So this is a wonderful tool. The internet is a wonderful tool for the spreading of the free market. Now, there's also the local economy idea as well, where you're selling things in your local area with personal connections, and that's cool too. But the internet is so much more convenient as well. So it's convenience or principles, maybe. So I don't know. Well, anyway, that's what we have going on with the new updates from Reddit. For some reason, the feds are wanting to subpoena these people for their information. They're wanting to subpoena Reddit for their information when Reddit really isn't responsible for what goes on Reddit. Okay, let's put it this way. There is a public park that's been established by some entity. I don't know. That's been established by the municipality of Chattanooga, we'll say. And the city councils all voted saying that this is an area which is delegated to be a public park. So then suddenly drug deals go on in this public park. Is the city council responsible for that? Well, no, not really. So that's the same sort of thing that we have going on with Reddit, where the people who run Reddit are really not responsible for what goes on Reddit because they can't be there all the time. It's a community-run thing. It's not some corporation, which is something that a lot of people fail to understand. So really, you should be also getting mad at the local utilities for facilitating waterboarding as much as you should be upset at Reddit for facilitating drug use. It's really nonsensical. Well, a UK school group, this is out of the UK, and this was just too funny. I had to share it. Out of the UK, there's a school group which is threatening to call the police on kids who are playing adult games. Now, I don't mean adult games as in like pornographic games. I mean adult games as in games which are rated M here in the United States, which are not actually federally here in the States restricted for the use of children because I played them lots. Well, a group of school principals in Cheshire, England, is warning parents that they will be on the lookout for evidence that children in their care have access to adult video games at home and will contact the police and children's social care if they are made aware of it. So the Nantwich Education Partnership, which represents 16 schools in Cheshire, sent a note to parents last month expressing concern that several children have been reporting playing or watching adults play games which are inappropriate for their age and have described the levels of violence and sexual content which they have witnessed. They specifically cite Call of Duty, Grand Theft Auto, Dogs of War, which is some sort of misnamed mangling of God of War or Gears of War, we don't actually know, as inappropriate. It also warns parents that children should not have access to Facebook or WhatsApp accounts before they are old enough. Well, something to point out is that this is not the responsibility of the school district to point these things out. Now, granted, the school district in England might be a little bit different from the school district here in the United States, but still, it's really not the responsibility of the schools to point out what's going on in kids' lives. Although I would argue that kids really shouldn't be in school anyway, because school really doesn't help any. Public schools really don't help any. They're kind of a detriment, actually, to the education of children because they teach the wrong things, for one, and they really don't do a good job of teaching the things which they teach anyway. So that's maybe I'm a little bit overboard on my view of schools because I never went to one, but that's just how I see things. Well, good news for people who have Android phones now and who are using WhatsApp, which is the app which allows you to send messages to people with their phone numbers without using up your data plan if you're connected to Wi-Fi. Well, WhatsApp has finally added voice calls for all Android users as well as iOS coming soon. So Android users, according to The Verge, can make voice calls on WhatsApp thanks to a quiet but major update. The feature has been teased for a long time now, with the update hitting select users a few weeks ago. Now, however, it seems that it's available to all with the latest version of WhatsApp offering a new clean layout with 3 tabs for calls, chats, and contacts. As you'd expect, you simply click the calls tab and select a contact to start chatting. So this makes things a lot easier for those of us who are using WhatsApp for communications. Now you can basically replace your whole phone service calling over Wi-Fi. So it's pretty cool. Well, in Paris, Uber is a quite popular thing, just as it is over here in the Chattanooga area. Well, finally, the courts are allowing you to do something which was not illegal anyway. Paris courts say that Uber Pop can continue to operate for now. So a court has declined to ban low-cost service until constitutional questions are resolved. An appeals court in Paris this morning declined to ban Uber's low-cost Uber Pop service, saying the company can continue to offer it until a constitutional court rules on a new law governing chauffeurs' licenses. The Constitutional Court is expected to rule in June, and the appeals court will reconvene in September. So this raises the question, why is it so threatening to a lot of these jurisdictions that Uber exists? Why is it so threatening that Uber's a thing? You know, so many of these people who work in these jurisdictions and work in taxi companies are very, very threatened by Uber. And I don't really know why. That's kind of the weird thing. You see, Uber is a ride-sharing service. They market themselves as a tech company, but so many people keep trying to say that they're a taxi company. Now, you might argue that, sure, but a ride-sharing company, I think, is a much better way to put it because these people are not professional taxi drivers. It's no more a professional taxi service than it would be if I drove my friend around and then asked for payment for gas. That doesn't make me a professional taxi driver. That just means I've exchanged money for the riding of somebody in my car, which in some jurisdictions, that's actually illegal because suddenly that's the usage of a car for commercial purpose and you can be thrown in jail or fined for not having a chauffeur's license. So very, very big problem that is Uber is causing, I guess. I don't really see Uber as causing a very big problem, but for some odd reason, a lot of people think that Uber is a huge issue and needs to be dealt with immediately. The city council for Chattanooga actually dealt with the usage of Uber and found that it's actually a-okay to use Uber because they've proper licensing and all these different things. So really the problem is not with Uber. The problem is with the municipalities who are trying to govern Uber. They're trying to step into bounds which they have no business stepping into, basically. You see, municipalities constantly want to govern things because they see it as their job to govern things, right? If I'm the governor, I'm supposed to govern, right? If I'm a lawmaker, I'm supposed to make laws, right? Well, actually, a lot of the time, the best course of action is to just do nothing. Okay, let's use an example here. Let's use Uber. Uber comes in and people love it. People use Uber, and once in a while, there's a problem that arises where an Uber driver has, say, assaulted an Uber passenger. Now, that'll be dealt with on a criminal level because that Uber driver must be held responsible, right? Simple enough. For some reason, people want to hold the company responsible because the company didn't do proper background checks and all these things. The problem is Uber doesn't actually have any employees who are drivers. So that point is null and void. They're not drivers who are employees. They're actually contractors. They're just exchanging money for the usage of their car. So there aren't taxi drivers and they're not employees in the traditional sense of the word. So the municipality, regardless, wants to try to pass new regulations and new legislation saying that these Uber drivers are somehow worse than regular people who charge money for driving their car around. So new measures must be taken. Well, the problem here is that these new measures don't really help anything. In fact, they just make it harder for the people who run Uber to run Uber. It's not helping, it's just hurting. So why then do these lawmakers and these city councilmen and the mayor and the governor and all these different people constantly feel the need to pass legislation on something which really is out of their scope of expertise? These people do not know how taxi drivers work. They don't know how taxi services work. They don't know how Uber works half the time. And yet, for some odd reason, they're trying to pass legislation regarding it, even though they really don't know how it works in the first place. Another area where legislators are trying to pass regulation on things they don't understand is the 3D printing realm, right? Where 3D printing is actually a pretty big new thing. 3D printing is a new industry that's taking off like a rocket. It's taking off and it's selling like hotcakes, these new 3D printers. So this is great, right? 3D printers are a cool new technology which allows you to manufacture something in your own house with rather low cost materials. Well, Silicon Republic has come out with a story now about a new 3D printer, which is inspired by Terminator, that can make objects 100 times faster than previous 3D printing methods. So the new 3D printing method, which was shown at the TED conference in Vancouver, has caused quite a stir, after the designers claimed that they can make objects in a fraction of the time that it would take to make a standard 3D printer to make this object. So under the current method of production from 3D printers, a layer of resin is placed on top of another layer until it forms a particular shape that, depending on the size, usually takes a matter of hours to create. So with the method developed by Carbon 3D, however, it's a much more scientifically challenging method, but it's easily usable, and the process shines light from a projector at the machine's base up through an oxygen-permeable window and into a pool of UV-curable resin. So basically, they're using an ultraviolet laser to create these new objects much, much faster than could be created with a standard layer-by-layer system. So when the light and oxygen reacts with the resin pulled up from the pool and the build platform, it solidifies to form the shape that the user wants, which, as the company CEO and co-founder Dr. Joseph DeSimone showed the TED audience, it can create a plastic ball in just 10 minutes rather than 10 hours. So you have a pool of resin, and you have an oxygen-permeable window underneath that pool, the pool is being supported by this window, and you have a projector underneath that, and the projector is shooting up ultraviolet light to cure the resin in specific points, and the build platform actually lifts up while the object is being lifted out of the pool. So it looks as though you're just lifting an object out of this pool, which it looks really cool. I mean, it's quite a spectacle to look at, but it's actually not that complicated a process, and it's probably actually a cheaper process as well. So there's a lot of positive things coming out of this. Now, me being me, I immediately think of guns because I really like guns. So does this mean now that guns can be manufactured with a 3D printer much faster than previously thought? Well, maybe. You see, 3D printers are 3D printers, and by that I mean they print out with a resin that's not that rigid. It might not hold up to the stresses which a firearm exerts on the different materials which are involved. So that being the case, this new 3D printer might not be able to handle say an AR-15 lower as we might hope, unfortunately. Well, that means now that these 3D printers are cool for making, say, paperweights and all sorts of little objects. There's nothing wrong with these 3D printers, but those of us who would want to print out guns on them, we may have to look elsewhere, a more heavy-duty 3D printer, unfortunately. But for those of us who also like to print out paperweights and different cool little things, there's nothing wrong with this new 3D printer. And it is a brand new technology, so you have to consider that too. Going forward, these objects are going to be much more rigid and much more stable, I'm sure, as time goes on. Well, you can manufacture a firearm in your house for very little money and very little effort, depending on how much effort you consider to be a lot of effort. It's all a subjective thing, but it's quite easy to manufacture a weapon in your house, say a Sten Mark II, where you can buy the receiver, which has the plans pre-printed on this steel tube. All you have to do is mill it out and then weld in a few spots, and there you go. You have a functioning firearm. So manufacturing a firearm in your house is not hard, it's not illegal, and it's actually a lot of fun. So 3D printing a gun in your house is also not hard. It's kind of fun, and it's also not illegal in most states. Now, for some odd reason, Congress wants to change that. Well, some members of Congress, particularly Dianne Feinstein, our favorite anti-gun legislator, wants to change that, saying that this should not happen because guns manufactured in the house can be used to commit crimes. To which I reply, that's true, but so can knives manufactured in the house made out of wooden stakes. You know, you can use anything to commit a crime. You actually can really use anything to commit a crime. I have a ballpoint pen sitting in front of me. I have a very, very limited amount of martial arts training, which I'm sure I could employ to use this pen as a weapon in some form or another. In fact, anybody could without any form of training. Click the pen, and now you have a sharp point which can be driven into somebody's throat. So this pen is now a very deadly weapon, and that applies to any object. I could break somebody's head open with a coffee mug. You know, I could use a computer monitor to smash it over somebody's head and kill them. You know, anything can be a weapon. So the ease of manufacturing really is null and void when we're talking about manufacture of weapons. The problem is that we keep having these people who want to pass legislation on just really, when you think about it, silly things. Is it really such a terrifying thing that somebody can manufacture a weapon within their house? Not really, when you think about it, because really things don't change all that much. I can still go to the gun store 3 seconds from my house and buy a rifle if I want to. I actually can, because I'm old enough to, and if I had the money, I would. So this doesn't really change all that much. In fact, you can buy a rifle which fires 5.56 millimeter ammunition for not that much money if you know where to look. So really, the question of it being manufactured in your house doesn't really matter. And honestly, people who are going to take the time to manufacture a gun in their house are probably people who are just enthusiasts in the firearms realm, who are not out there to commit any sort of crime whatsoever. They just want to have a good time. This is Digital Drive. I'm your host, Russell. The show we talk about technology and more. Nuganomics.com with David Toulis is coming up in just a few seconds. The show talks about local economy and free markets with his own very Nuga-centric view. Thanks for listening.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
You do not have to be living with constant pain. You need to make the choice today to enjoy a revitalized body. You deserve to live a better pain-free life. And Dr. Ross can help. At Ross Chiropractic, failure is not an option. For over 40 years, Dr. Ross, a graduate of the prestigious Palmer College of Chiropractic, prided himself in helping and healing. The Ross method of chiropractic care is unique in developing a treatment designed just for you. And Ross Chiropractic makes this promise to you. If he believes that he can't help relieve your pain, he will guide you to another health practitioner to assist you. Feel better now. You owe it to yourself. You really do. Call Dr. Ross now at 954-9591. That's 954-9591. And visit Dr. Ross at 7405 Shallowford Road, Suite 320. Ross Chiropractic, helping your body heal itself. Because when your spine's in line, you will feel fine. Call 954-9591. That's 954-9591 for Ross Chiropractic.
Every Tuesday at 11 a.m. on Hot News Talk Radio, join Real Estate U for an hour of information, guests, and new ideas about the dynamic Chattanooga real estate investment market. Real Estate U every Tuesday at 11 a.m. here on Hot News Talk Radio.
If you have the DTs, the shakes, because your phone is on the fritz, you have nomophobia. You need help. Your telecom doctor is in. Cell Surgeon at Northgate Mall. Cell Surgeon yanks open the ribcage of your phone, pries out the dead heart, and puts in the beating life that you lead on your cell phone. Broken screen, phone not charging, water damage, battery given out? Cell Surgeon at Northgate Mall next to Old Chicago Pizza. Check us out on Facebook. Open Sunday. Cell Surgeon. We bring your phone back to life.
Have you ever thought about starting your own business? Trying to figure out which one may be right for you is a very daunting task. My name is Bruce Krebs with the Entrepreneur Source, and I can help you look at franchises or business opportunities that are a right fit for you and the economy that we live in and that are right for the greater Chattanooga area, both demographically and competitively. If you would just like to learn more about the opportunities that may be right for you, please call me for a free assessment. My phone number is 423-875-5621. 423-875-5621.
Pure, honest, fair, and respect. Just some words that come to mind when you think about how you want to be treated. And that's how you're treated at Rivermont Pure. Rivermont Pure in Rivermont, Chattanooga. Serving your vehicle needs for over 30 years.
Now that's a long time.
Owner-operators Charlie and Tommy.
Always